The street outside was quiet, but not in the comforting way. Through the thin curtains, I could see the glow of the street lamp casting shadows across the living room wall. It was past midnight, and Daniel still wasn't home. The house felt unnaturally still, every creak in the wooden floor sharp against the silence. He had left at 7, kissing me quickly on the cheek, saying he'd be back after his night shift. He always said the same thing. "Don't wait up, Edna. These nights are long." And I always believed him, or at least pretended to. But tonight, I kept glancing at the clock, each passing minute heavier than the last. On the coffee table sat a half-finished mug of tea. I had made it hours ago, telling myself he'd be home soon, that I'd reheat it when I heard his keys in the door. Now the tea was cold, a thin film floating across the top. Something gnawed at me. He used to text during his breaks, short little updates, tired but okay. Heading home soon. Lately, my phone stayed silent. No texts. No calls. Just unexplained gaps of time that stretched further and further apart. I pulled his work jacket from the chair where he usually left it. Tonight, it wasn't there. He hadn't taken it with him. Daniel never went out without that jacket, especially in weather this cold. The absence made my chest tighten. Unable to sit still, I walked into the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed softly, the faint smell of leftover pasta lingering. On the counter was a receipt he'd shoved into his pocket and forgotten. I smoothed it flat. A restaurant bill, 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine. Last Tuesday. A Tuesday he had claimed he was working overtime. My throat went dry. I shoved the receipt back into the drawer where I'd found it, as if hiding it could erase what it suggested. Maybe he had gone with coworkers. Maybe it was innocent. But the excuses were growing thinner, stretched too far to cover the unease building inside me. Then, the phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The screen showed an unknown number. I hesitated, then let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, the notification popped up. "This is scheduling," a man's voice said. "We're confirming Daniel's availability for the night shift tomorrow." I replayed the message, my hand trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. He was supposed to be working tonight. If scheduling was confirming tomorrow, then what was he doing right now? The sound of a key turning in the front door made me freeze. Daniel stepped inside, his hair tousled, his breath clouding in the cold air. He wasn't carrying his lunchbox. No grease stains on his clothes. No smell of oil or machinery, just a faint trace of cologne I didn't recognize. "You're still awake?" His tone was light, but his eyes flicked toward the phone in my hand. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah. Couldn't sleep." He toed off his shoes, setting them neatly against the wall. "Long night at work," he said casually, moving toward the bedroom. The lie came too easily, too practiced. My chest tightened with the urge to ask him where he'd really been. But my throat locked up. I just watched as he disappeared down the hallway, his footsteps fading. I sat there in the dim light, my pulse pounding in my ears. Slowly, I scrolled back through the last few weeks of messages. The patterns were obvious now, the late shifts, the sudden need for cash withdrawals, the way he showered the moment he got home. By the time I crawled into bed, he was already asleep, his breathing steady, face relaxed as if nothing were wrong. I lay on my side, staring into the darkness, my body stiff, my mind racing. When dawn finally came, pale light spilling through the blinds, I moved quietly, careful not to wake him. In the closet, his jacket hung stiff and heavy. I slipped my hand into the lining and felt paper crumple under my fingers. A receipt, folded. My heart thudded as I opened it. It wasn't from a gas station or fast food place. It was for dinner at the same restaurant as before. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. I shoved it back, my fingers shaking. My stomach churned as I stood in the quiet room, listening to Daniel breathe in his sleep. If he wasn't working nights, then where was he really going? The following Friday, I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I told Daniel I might stop by my sister's after dinner, giving myself a reason to leave the house. He nodded without suspicion, kissed me lightly, and said, "Don't wait up. I'll be back late." As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my coat and followed at a careful distance. My hands were clammy on the steering wheel, my breath shallow. The streets were mostly empty, pools of yellow light from the lamps spilling across the asphalt. He didn't take the usual route toward his job. Instead, he turned down a quiet residential street, the kind lined with tidy hedges and porch lights glowing like watchful eyes. He slowed in front of a modest two-story house. My stomach tightened as I watched him park and step out. He didn't glance around, didn't act cautious. He walked to the door with the ease of someone who belonged there. The porch light flicked on, and the door opened. A woman stood there, smiling warmly as if she'd been waiting for him. She leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek before pulling him inside. My chest constricted, but before I could react, a small figure darted into view. A child, no older than 6, ran down the hallway and threw himself into Daniel's arms. Through the narrow crack of the curtains, I saw Daniel scoop him up effortlessly, laughing, a sound I hadn't heard from him in months. Then another child, slightly older, appeared, calling out, "Dad." My vision blurred. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. Dad. They were calling him Dad. I ducked lower in my seat, my heart hammering. Questions screamed inside my head. Who were these children? How long had he been living like this? Was this a mistress, or a second family? I stayed there until the lights dimmed and the front curtains were drawn shut. My body was frozen, but my mind raced. Every moment of his late shifts, every unexplained receipt, every new cologne, it all fell into place. When I finally drove home, the night air felt colder, sharper, almost hostile. I kept replaying the image of that woman smiling at him, of those children calling him Dad. I wanted to wake him that very night, demand answers, but fear stopped me. Fear of what the truth might confirm. As I sat on the edge of the bed, watching him breathe deeply in sleep a few hours later, a bigger question haunted me. If Daniel had another family, then what role did I truly play in his life? The next morning, I couldn't look at him the same way. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, scrolling through his phone as if nothing had shifted. I studied his face, the faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. He looked relaxed, almost happy. Not the man burdened by endless night shifts. I slid into the chair across from him. "Daniel," I said carefully, "where exactly do you go at night?" His eyes flicked up, sharp, then softened into a practiced expression. "Work, Edna." Same as always. The lie landed between us, heavy and suffocating. My fingers trembled under the table. "Strange," I said, pulling out the receipt I had kept. "This doesn't look like work." For a moment, he froze. Just a flicker, but enough. He recovered quickly, setting his mug down with a calm clink. "Dinner with colleagues. I didn't want to worry you." I almost laughed. The image of those children calling him Dad burned in my mind. "Colleagues?" I whispered. "Do your colleagues call you Dad too?" The blood drained from his face. His lips parted, but no words came. I had caught him. Finally. When he spoke, his voice was low. "Edna, listen, it's complicated." "Complicated?" My chest tightened. "You've been living a double life." "How long? How long have you been lying to me?" His shoulders slumped. For the first time, he looked defeated. "Almost 5 years," he admitted. "It started as a mistake. But they needed me. I couldn't walk away." The room tilted. 5 years. Half our marriage. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had built an entire second home. My throat burned as I fought back tears. "You let me believe you were working nights. You let me sit here alone while you played husband somewhere else." His hands clenched on the table. I thought I could protect both families. You and them. I never meant to hurt you. The words were hollow, stripped of meaning. Protect? He had destroyed everything. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. Protect me? You made me a stranger in my own marriage. Daniel said nothing. His silence was confirmation enough. That evening, when he left the house again, I didn't follow. Instead, I searched. I called the restaurant from the receipt, checked the card statements, pieced together his trail. And the deeper I looked, the more I uncovered, not just dinners, but cash withdrawals, unexplained transfers. It wasn't only betrayal of love. It was betrayal of trust, of money, of stability. And with every discovery, one terrifying thought grew louder. If he was willing to lie about another family, what else was he hiding from me? The evidence stacked quickly. Bank statements showed regular withdrawals I hadn't authorized. Credit card charges appeared in towns I had never visited. And each thread led back to Daniel. The picture was undeniable. He wasn't just dividing his life between two families, he was draining both to keep his lies alive. I booked an appointment with a lawyer. Sitting in that office, surrounded by shelves of dusty case files, I felt my voice shake as I explained. The lawyer listened carefully, nodding. You have enough to protect yourself, she said. And if there are children involved, you should know where you stand legally. The word children stung. Those boys who had called him dad weren't mine, yet his betrayal had made them part of my reality. I left the office with a folder of documents that suddenly felt like armor. That night, I waited for him in the living room. When Daniel walked through the door, I didn't move. The folder sat on the coffee table between us. He looked at it, then at me, his expression tightening. What's this? He asked. Everything, I said evenly. Receipts, statements, records. Proof of what you've been doing. He sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. Edna. I never wanted you to find out this way. I forced myself not to cry. You didn't want me to find out at all. You wanted to keep us both in the dark. His voice cracked. I thought I could manage it. Provide for everyone. Keep both families safe. The words were bitter in my ears. Safe? You've ruined everything. You lied, you stole, and you turned our life into a cover story. For once, he didn't argue. He lowered his head, silent. I pushed the papers toward him. I've filed for divorce. The house, the accounts, everything will be protected. You don't get to use me anymore. His eyes flicked up, stunned. You can't just. I can, I cut in. My voice was steady now. And I already have. For the first time in weeks, I felt stronger than him. Daniel left that night without another word. The door closed, and the silence felt different, not heavy, but freeing. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt piece by piece. I confided in friends, leaned on family, and slowly allowed myself to imagine a life not defined by his deception. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. Then one morning, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single note, scrawled in hurried handwriting. Don't trust Sophia. She knew everything. My hands trembled as I read it. The woman I thought was just another victim, had she been part of the lie all along?